Yeah.
I guess I'll be here till I go.
Do that again.
At least then they can say, and she was surrounded by her family.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Kingdom Women Talk, where we encourage, validate, and empower others to do life. I'm excited about the episode tonight because it's almost like a rewind or a remix of what we had before. So we heard your comments and we received a lot of feedback concerning raising adults. It seemed to be a very popular topic because at some point in time, our children grow up and become adults, right? And we have to raise them to that point. But tonight we're going to talk about what happens when they become adults. You've raised them, now they're an adult. So tonight we're going to talk about parenting adults. It's a little bit different than raising them. We play just a slightly different role, but nevertheless, it's going to be good conversation and we're going to be dropping plenty of nuggets. So we all have adult children.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
So what have you found to be the key to parenting them? Oh, well, wait, let's back it up. Is there a difference between raising and parenting?
Yes.
Difference.
I think when we're raising them, we're making sure their needs are met. Clothes, food, they're going to school. We're raising them. But when they become adults, that part is over. Now we start parenting. In parenting, we're no longer responsible for what you eat, what you dress, how you dress,
Right.
where you go.
Right.
But we're still parenting because at some point they do come back and ask certain questions or they need us for particular things. And so we're now in that role as a parent. I think people say, well, I'm his parent. True.
Yeah.
That's true.
Always will be.
Always
right?
will be. But when they're 17 and under, you're raising them. When they become, as the world classifies, as adults, we become their parents.
Yeah, that's really good. That's good. What are your thoughts, Angie?
I kind of agree with Sheila. Raising them is rearing them, making sure that they have all the tools that they need when they become adults, to use so they're not on your phone or in your pockets.
They're going to stay in that anyway.
Right?
Yes.
But, parenting is different on the level of, it's pretty much, gentle nudges, suggestions, not necessarily given like a strategic structure. You know what I mean?
Oh, I
A
like
lot of
that.
structure.
Strategic structure.
Yeah.
Parents all over the world need to grab hold of that word,
Yeah.
strategic structure.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer, I told you to do this, so you need to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
When we're rearing, it's do what I tell you to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I said so.
Absolutely.
Right. It's those types of, no, it's not up for discussion. You heard what I said.
Yeah.
That's kind of the mode we're in. And when we begin to parent, it's more of a dialogue. Well, I don't think that you should consider that. Or if you're asking for my recommendation, or if you're asking me, then that's not how I would do it. You're right. It's more of suggestions, because if we put the hammer down,
Yeah.
they're only going to go left anyway. Right.
Yeah.
It's going to go left. So why do you think when that relationship goes from rearing to parenting, so many breaks and cracks happen in that. Like, that's a tough age between 18, legal adult, or 21. We can take 21. Somewhere between there into that transition until we realize that, you know what, they're not a baby anymore, they're actually an adult. That's a tough transition for everybody, parents alike. It's challenging for us. So let's talk about that a little bit in terms of lessons we've learned rearing versus, or we're going to talk about rearing, parenting our children that are now adults, our adult children.
I think it's harder for me, I think it's harder on the parents because we've got to know when to cut it off. Because as we said earlier, I'm always going to be your mama.
Right.
Or I'm always going to be your daddy. Right. So we equate that with I'm always going to be your parent.
Right.
So we have to now realize that we have to go in a different direction.
Yeah. And also I think the biggest thing along those same lines, Sheila, is opening your eyes and realizing that the respect goes on both ends now. It's no longer do what I tell you to do because I said so because I'm your mama. It's more of, oh, wow, he's a grown man, or she's a grown woman. Yeah. So they're wanting the same respect that we want. We can no longer pull that rank card because I'm your mama. And I think the relationship gets strained because sometimes as adults, we don't recognize that. And they're 35 years old and we're still saying you ought to do it because I'm your mama. It's like, really?
Or we get caught up in the least you can do, I am your mom.
Isn't that manipulation?
Yeah.
It is.
That is nothing but emotional manipulation when we pull the mom
you
card.
You can't come over and see your mama once or twice a week, or, you know, when I call and ask you to come take me somewhere, you know, I am your mom. Well, really, what you are is the vessel that God chose to bring that child into the world, that he allowed you to raise and now parent.
Yeah.
But it doesn't give you carte blanche how you are in their lives.
Right.
You know how some parents, well, my kids got grown and they just they disown me because they're living their lives their way.
But also, can we take it a step further? If the relationship is strained and the adult children don't want to spend time, be around, or visit the parent, is that a moment for a self-check? Like, why?
I think so.
Why?
Yeah.
It's like, why? Yeah. What has caused that? They just didn't wake up one morning and be like, I don't need my mom no more. I don't need my dad no more. I don't want to be bothered with them. I don't want to be around them. That just didn't happen. No. There are some things that happen along the way that I think that as parents, we have to then take a step back and do a self-evaluation, you know, and be able to own our stuff. Even if it just comes out of pure ignorance. They don't come with a handbook. We did the best we could.
Right.
However, along the way, we may have never considered how it may have made them feel. And so now they take that inner child, go watch the episode, Healing the Inner Child, but that inner child now becomes a grown adult. But the inner child and all the hurt, all of the disappointments, all of the whatevers now reside with this adult person.
Yeah.
And because we've never, as parents, now we have an adult and we're trying to parent that adult, we won't even acknowledge that, you know what, that was not my intent. I really thought I was doing the best thing. I really thought that by me doing X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, it was the best option for the time. And if it caused you any pain, I'm sorry, right? We're not hearing that. And I think that could be what's straining the relationships.
But I think as parents, sometimes we get in the mode of, you know, because we've reared them, right? So we did the best that we could and our way was right in our eyes, you know, and it does cause you to have to take a self-check to say, maybe I did do that wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and be transparent enough with your child to apologize.
Yeah.
It's okay. Again, it goes both ways. And that's
agree.
even with younger children. If you do something and that you recognize as a parent, apologies are needed.
I think so. But we did grow up where that don't happen.
No.
Boy, our parents would rather snatch their eyeballs out than to say, I didn't mean it, or I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
But then speaking of that, though, how long are we going to use that as a reason, excuse, whatever you want to call it, of how we raised our kids?
What part is an excuse? Which part?
I did the best I can with what I had. We say, okay, I did the best I could with what I had, but at some point, as they were growing, we could have been, I'm not going to say should, we could have been growing with them.
Could have been.
And we could have been saying, you know what? I know how I felt when my mom and daddy was telling me, or my mom or whatever, you're going to do it because I said so with no excuses or whatever. Maybe I need to take a step back and let me try a different playbook.
I would agree, definitely agree with that. And I even can speak from my own experiences because I grew up like that. You're going to do it because I said so, right?
Yeah.
That type of thing. And I know how that made me feel. However, I don't think that when I had my first child, I had the maturity,
Yes.
right, to be able to take a step back to say, I didn't like that. Now, there were some things that I knew off the bat I would never do. You know, that used to be like, if I have children, I'm never going to do that.
Right.
So I knew that piece of it, but that takes an emotional maturity that I don't know we have because historically we have children young.
Basically,
Right.
we do.
We're children having children or adult children having children, you
Right,
know.
right.
So I don't think we have the emotional maturity to recognize that, but it comes later, right? So when I did recognize it, you try to make subtleties, but I still didn't put my big girl panties on and do what Angie said and just say, you know what, y'all, I've been kind of going about this thing all wrong, you know, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna pivot and do something different.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't have that conversation, but I kind of recognized within myself that ain't what I want, and just kind of slowly start
Yeah.
changing, turning the
Right,
boat.
right.
You know, so, but I think also as parents, sometimes we're holding on because we don't know anything different.
Right.
I talk to a lot of adults who say, my children are my everything. My children are my world. So then when those children becomes adults, the world come crashing down.
Or they still are their world.
Yes, even though they're not needed in that
Right.
capacity, right?
They make them, you know, they
Yeah.
parents or moms, especially single moms, our children were our world, are our world, because we raised them by ourselves.
Right.
And so now that they're out on their own, they're grown, who's there with us now?
Nobody. You and
Nobody.
Jesus.
But before people realize
I hear Keith
that
sweat in my ear.
Jesus
Nobody.
Stop whining, I can't stand him. But now you're alone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you just like, I don't like this feeling because for whatever, 20, whatever years they decide to leave, you've had them there. They've been your total focus. You know, everything you did, work, you know, energy, everything you did was for them.
Yeah.
And now they're doing it on their own, and you're like, so for me, I feel like we now kind of delve into that woe is me sort of
No
thing
longer
because
needed.
Yeah.
I'm no longer needed. My kids are grown. They're doing their own thing. They don't come by and see me. They don't da-da-da-da-da.
But isn't that an indicator that parents need lives too?
Basically, yes.
You need, while you're rearing your children, create also a life for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So when they become adult children and you're parenting your adults, they're still not your world because they need that space to be able to grow, make mistakes, you know,
Yes.
learn, filter out this world, understand what they like, what they don't like, be able to think on their own, problem solve on their own. And you can kind of be there with their safety net, giving advice, catching them sometimes when they fall, helping them get back on the right track. Whatever role you need to play, it's no longer a right there, Johnny on the spot, is more of a I'm here if you need me.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll keep checking on you type thing.
Right.
But if you have not created a life for yourself, then you're right. You are.
Codependent.
I was gonna say that's a level of codependency.
Oh, and yes, but in the streets we call it your mama is meddling.
Oh, she in the way. That's what they say.
In the
She
way.
in the way.
You're right, because then they get into a relationship and guess what?
There you are.
Involved.
Call and always need something.
Or either just call it. Why?
Because that's all we know to do.
That's all we know to do.
Because we haven't now taken that time to say, well, you know what? I can be a parent and still live my own life.
Yes. Without feeling guilty.
Yeah, I was gonna
Right.
say there's some guilt though that comes with it a lot of times, which is why the parents don't do it. They don't like the way that feels. Nobody likes to feel guilty, right?
Right.
So yeah, they just go for what they know. At
And
that
it's
point.
easier for dads. They be like, they grown. If they need you, they'll come.
Absolutely. Now that's true.
They be like, if they need you, they know where to find you.
Yeah.
They're grown. It's us as moms. It's hard to cut the strings.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it wasn't easy, but it was a little challenging. But now I appreciate it when the Lord is like, give them back to me.
Yeah.
Let me establish a relationship with them. Because I was in the way.
Yeah.
I was in the way.
Right.
So now the relationship it flows a whole lot better.
And I think for what I feel is like when you're there, they're grown, maybe you live with your adult children. I know the times that I stayed with my daughter, at some point you've got to realize, wait a minute now, they got their own family. I mean, she's married, she has kids. I may be here to help a little bit, but at one point, do we say, now I need to go live my life instead of just being there, even starting this, it was like, I think you said, the Lord said, your assignment there is up. And I'm like, what assignment? I'm just here helping my kids. Because then I think we become dependent upon them needing us. And then once they no longer need us, even in that dynamic,
Yeah.
there's a father, there's a mother, there's children, and the only time grandma is really needed is when I'm getting in trouble or something. Then they want to come to grandma. But you know what I'm saying? They're vacationing, they're doing their thing, and I know for me, a lot of times this was like, I don't want to go because I don't want to feel like they always got to take me. Or we go out to dinner, they always got to pay for me. I didn't like that, so I think at some point we do have to say, oh, it's time for me to start living my life.
But sometimes, some parents don't want to live their life because they have made that their life. So it's like, they get married and have children, then it just becomes them jumping into family all over again. So it's like they raise one family, whoo, I got another one to raise. And then when that happened, whoo, I got another one to raise. It's like that's what some people live for. They love that, to be able to just continue to raise and raise and raise, because that's where they're comfortable. That's what they know. This other world is foreign. All right, so where do you start? Because a lot of times they're like, well, I'm in my 50s, I'm in my late 40s, I'm in my late 50s, my early 60s. What am I going to do? How do I start? What does that look like? There is no reference point.
That's true.
So then it becomes what? I just hitch my horse over to the family.
Basically.
Yeah.
I guess I'll be here till I go.
Do that again.
At least
Could
then
not.
they can say, and she was surrounded by her family.
I want to go like Enoch, just walking hand in hand, just dissipate. And that is
Crazy.
why once your children get to the point where you need to parent them, you need to get yourself a life and
Yes,
go
ma'am.
find you something to do.
Yeah.
Go do something, right?
Quickly.
And wait, but how do we get rid of the need to be needed?
They do it for you.
I mean, they kick you to the curb, but when you have a need to be needed, you're offended.
Well,
A lot of times,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
You mad.
Yeah, you and your feelings
Now it
about
becomes
it,
a whole
yeah.
alt with some grudges, and I ain't talking
Yeah.
to him, gonna treat me
Yeah.
like this. It becomes a whole situation now, right?
It does.
When really, how do we get rid of the need to be needed? Because really what we should be doing is once we've reared our children, we should be excited
Yeah.
because we've given it all. We've given them everything. We've
Right.
sacrificed. We've gone without.
right.
We've made sure you had. Okay, now you're at a point where you're in college or maybe you're just working and you're doing your own thing. We should be looking back like, yeah.
I think
I agree.
I think that's that will take making yourself vulnerable enough to, if you have friends or a church community, vulnerable enough to say, you know, I really want to do something, but I just don't know how. Some people volunteer at their church, and
Yeah.
even that's not sufficient enough. You know what I mean? So now we have to be vulnerable enough to ask questions like, what do I do next? You know, got a spiritual mentor, your pastor or first lady or whoever, you know, or find somebody who, you know, everybody knows somebody whose children are grown and they out on their own, and that person is
Start
living on
linking
their
up.
own and they're, you know, living life. You just, how do you do it? But a lot of us won't do that.
Well, the other piece of it is now that they are adults, why not work on the relationship? Right?
Yeah,
I
that's
think
good.
that's one of the things that I found with my adult boys is I wanted to work on the relationship because rearing took us through so many ups, downs, roundabouts, lows, highs, over the mountain, down in the valley. Like we've hit every emotion probably. So when they became adults, it was one, whew, thank you, Jesus, we made it, right?
Yeah.
But then I knew that we had to be tough disciplinarians in some instances, but then we also had to be safety net catchers. We played so many different roles that it was important that I wanted to repair the areas that I felt that was cracked. And even in doing that, it took a level of vulnerability to be able to talk to them candidly or put forth the effort, right?
Right.
Not have that mentality like, well, I'm the mom, they should be checking for me. No, I put forth the effort. You know, if you text them, hey, good morning, son, just want to say love you, you know, or call them, hey, what you doing today? That type of things. Keeping
Yeah.
tabs, checking in,
Yeah.
because to let them know, you may not need me in that capacity, but I'm still here.
Exactly.
And I think our when we're parenting our adult children, they need to know that we're still here because
Yeah.
culturally, in some cultures, it's you turn 18, you on your own, you get it how you get it, right?
Yes.
Don't ask me for nothing. You know, you can't come back here. You got to go. So there's a lot of things that pushes them out into this cold world without having a frame of reference or feeling like, you know what, I'm gonna give it 110%. But if I fall on my face, at least I know I got a place that I can tag in, right? Some people don't have that. And I think as parents, we have to do a better job with setting proper expectations and boundaries, but also not conforming to the traditions that we've seen happen, which is you turn 18, you out of here for the boys.
Yeah.
The girls can stay, and and that sends a mixed message, because at the end of the day, both of them are human beings. You still can teach a boy how to be a man, even if they are under the same roof.
Well, what about the ones that have to come back home?
But there's a lot of them that aren't even going, out on their own due to, the way that the economy is.
You're
and
right.
the
Can't afford to go, right?
Right. They're
Right.
home with their parents as
Right.
adults,
Right.
How do you make that work?
Yeah.
I think you still have to set boundaries for yourself as a parent. Just because they're in your home, they're still adults. Now, should there be a degree of respect and courtesy? Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But you, as a parent, we still have to respect and set boundaries for ourselves. And I think for us, a lot of it is, okay, you're back in my house now.
Yeah.
And this will be done and this won't be done and none of this and this and that and da-da-da-da-da,
Which makes them feel uncomfortable.
which makes them feel uncomfortable, which makes them would rather go out and sleep in a cold car or
From here to there,
From here to
friend
there,
house to friend
yeah.
house, couch to couch.
Right.
But also, isn't that a seed of rejection?
yes.
It is.
You're sowing seeds of rejection when you make them feel as though they're unwanted. How do we make our own children feel unwanted in a home that they grew up in, or with a family that they grew up in, just because their age changed?
Right.
Right.
Or their circumstances changed, like Angie said, with the way things are now. They're working, but
Hey,
It's
we can barely
60.
afford a place.
I said yesterday,
When I look at them places, I'm like,
we're a couple of paychecks away.
it's like, what in the world?
One-
We don't want to pay that absorbent rent, or,
Right.
so I get it. And now it takes for them to put their coins together to
Right.
be able to afford a place that's
Yes.
reasonable, that's decent.
Yes.
So I understand that. And I think, it sounds like to me that with the parenting, we just have to shift with what the circumstance is, and not be so bent on what we've seen happen in the past. All right, because a lot of times our point of reference is what we've seen. So it
Right.
was either how we were reared and parented, or how our parents was parented, or our grandparents are parented. There's always a point of reference, a level of influence. But we have to be able to recognize this is an individual that God has entrusted me with, and I need to determine what's the best course of action, because it's not one size fit all. And I think we were parented with one size. I don't care, you can have 10 kids, they're going to parent all 10 the exact same way. You fit in where you get in, and if emotions are bruised and hurt, sorry for you. Right?
and I think when we have adult children that have come back home, for lack of a better way to explain it, it becomes a business transaction almost. Okay, so let's sit down and talk about these bills.
He said it becomes a business transaction.
I got you, your wife, and 2 kids now moved back in. And these are the things that I think we as a family are going to have to figure out how we're going to pay all these as a family.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
When you have the conversation,
Basically is what I'm saying.
it becomes an issue when you feel that way, but you haven't set the expectation.
communicated it. That's
right.
right.
That's when it becomes a push and a pull and strife and division. But when you sit down and you say, hey, y'all can come back, but this is what it is. Because then grown folks get the opportunity to say, that's what I want or that's what I don't want.
Exactly.
Right. But instead, what we do is we become passive aggressive, in and out the house, all times of the night. Well, if that's not what you want, then you should have said, my door locks at a certain time, and they can figure out either they're going to be in or they just going to prepare to sleep someplace else that night, right? But instead, we just mumble, grumble, and be passive aggressive about it, which creates strife and division. So when they do leave, it's, I'm out. Don't say nothing else to me. Don't call
You don't
me.
ever have to worry about
Right,
me
we're
coming
not
back over
talking.
here.
Yeah. We
When
just
all
have to
it
do
took was a
better.
conversation.
Yes, communication is key.
Yeah.
In parenting.
And I think a lot of times parents are hesitant about having boundary conversations with their children, their adult children, because they don't want to create, like you just said, that strife.
They don't want to be cut off.
They don't want to be cut
Yeah.
off. Cut me off, because we're going to have this conversation.
Me too.
I mean, because
Yeah.
let's just be honest. If you go out in the world and you get a roommate, you all have to sit down and decide how you're going to pay all these bills.
Right.
How, are you all going to tribute to groceries as one, or is everybody going to buy their own food? You know, so that conversation with another adult, for me, shows that I'm saying I respect you enough that I'm coming to you, adult to an adult, with this is the expectation.
Yeah.
Either you can meet it or you can't, and here and now is the time for you to say, well, Mom, I understand what you're saying, but that right there may be a little bit too much.
Right.
Or this right here, I could probably contribute more toward this than I can that.
Yeah.
Then there's no, everybody sitting around with an attitude, resentful, eating up all my food, you know, refrigerator opening and closing,
Yeah.
you know. It just takes communication.
Yeah, it does. It does. And also a willingness to get along.
Yes.
Sometimes you just got to put your isms and schisms to the side for the greater good, right?
Yeah.
Because we can be so judgmental as people, or have set in our own ways, used to things done a certain kind of way, and it ain't hurt nothing.
And I wonder why other cultures can do it. How
The
can other
willingness
cultures?
to do it.
Yes.
It's the will to get along, right?
Right.
We treat our adult, culturally, we sometimes treat our adult children as if they owe us something, or they should be grateful that you are here. You should be grateful that you're here. Where what we see in our other cultures is it's a family affair,
Yes.
right? It's a family affair, because sometimes the parents can't work and they
Right.
they take care of the whole household, or sometimes it's everybody coming together.
Right.
Yeah.
So it can be done. Again, we just got to shift our mindset to be
Yes.
able to do it.
Yes.
Right.
So true.
Yeah.
All right, y'all, good conversation. We thank you so much for joining us for another conversation and topic about parenting adults. If the Lord keep running it back, it's because it's something that He wants us to get. It's an area that's causing disease in the body of Christ, and He wants to eradicate that so that we can come together and not have so much widespread division amongst families. So we pray that this episode blessed you. Until next time, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram channels, and be blessed. Goodbye.
Bye.